YouTube, it's Mark here. Just want to bring a Bible version reading to you today. It's from Acts 26. Going to read it, of course, in the King James Bible first. And this is a great demonstration of a man under conviction. Okay? Now, when I read this, you'll see that this has a real sense of power and authority and truth in this, especially the final verse. It's Acts 26, verses 24 through to 28. I'm going to read this first, King James. Then I'm going to show you what they're doing with the new versions with this. And we lose the conviction, and we throw in rebuke and doubt and questions, and it's really messed up, actually, and it's just, there's no power to it at all, and there's no truth to it. So let me read this verse. And as he thus spake for himself, Festus said with a loud voice, Paul, thou art beside thyself, much learning doth make thee mad. But he said, Paul, I am not mad, most noble Festus, but speak forth the words of truth and soberness. For the king knoweth of these things, before whom also I speak freely. For I am persuaded that none of these things are hidden from him, for this thing was not done in a corner. King Agrippa, believest thou the prophets? I know that thou believest. Then Agrippa said unto Paul, Almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. That's a man under conviction. And King Agrippa, he knows Jewish law, he knows Jewish history, he knows about the prophets, he knows this. And you see that conviction in verse 28. It's powerful. He's just literally on the tip of becoming a Christian. It's a powerful piece of scripture that we've just read there. Very powerful. However, what we find once again with the new versions is that instead of conforming to this conviction, we see that it throws in, as I mentioned a moment ago, rebukes, questions, doubts, and every other translation is written very slightly differently to the others, just to make sure that the copyright's all covered, as usual. So let me read you, focusing on verse 28, and just remember that conviction that King Agrippa was under, where he said, Almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. Very powerful words from King Agrippa, of all people. So let's just read this in the New International Version. Then Agrippa said to Paul, Do you think that in such a short time you can persuade me to be a Christian? Doesn't sound like conviction to me. That sounds like a rebuke. Let's check the New Living Translation. Agrippa interrupted him. Do you think that you can persuade me to become a Christian so quickly? Question mark. Again, a rebuke, interrupting, rebuking. No conviction there at all. And this is a bizarre question as well, English Standard Version. And Agrippa said to Paul, In a short time, would you persuade me to be a Christian? That doesn't even make any sense. He's almost like asking him, Can you make me a Christian? Bizarre. Let's have a look here. Holman Christian Standard Bible. Then Agrippa said to Paul, Are you going to persuade me to become a Christian so easily? Question mark. You know, smacks of a rebuke to me. International Standard Version. Agrippa asked Paul, Can you so quickly persuade me to become a Christian? I mean, it doesn't even read like real English to me, but it's still a question. It's almost like he's asking him a favour. I don't know what it is. It doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, in verse 28 in the King James Bible, we really feel that power of conviction. And here, I'm not feeling it. I don't know what you guys think, but this is just ridiculous, to be honest. The New King James, to be fair, and to give this a fair kind of broad reading, actually conforms to this pretty much. Then Agrippa said to Paul, You almost persuade me to become a Christian. No question. So that conviction remains, but again, you know, you just feel that power more with the King James Bible. So to be fair, New King James marries that reading. However, as we know from previous videos that I've done, it generally doesn't, and questions and does things. So the fact that this is in accordance doesn't make it necessarily, well, it doesn't make it any better at all. You know, this, I'm just using this to show that it's not a problem in this case. So let's have a look at some other versions, just to give a good cross-reference of everything. This doesn't read too well to me, and it's still a question. This is the Common English Bible. Agrippa said to Paul, "Are you trying to convince me that in such a short time you've made me a Christian?" It doesn't really read well to me, and it's still a question back to him. Rather than that statement of conviction and affirmation, it's still a question. And it wasn't a question, it was a statement that he made. Let's check the contemporary English version. Agrippa asked Paul, "In such a short time, do you think you can talk me into being a Christian?" It's still a question mark, there's no conviction, it's just a rebuke, that's all it is. Rebuke, question, you know, who do you think you are, almost. Let's just take a look at some others, just picking any at random here. New Century Version, King Agrippa said to Paul, "Do you think you can persuade me to become a Christian in such a short time?" Question mark. Insulting, rebuking. There's no conviction, no statement again. Let's have a look here. Let's pick. I did actually look at this one just before I started this video. I looked at this one, and this isn't far off either. The New Life version, again, a new version I've sort of come across a few times recently. Not very popular, but actually several readings have been reasonably okay. Reasonably, out of all of the modern perversions, this is the least perverse, but it's still bad, it's still not good. However, this verse appears to be relatively okay, much like the New King James. So it says here, "Then Agrippa said to Paul, 'In this short time you have almost proven to me that I should become a Christian.'" It's saying similar, you know, it's about the same thing. It's at least an exclamation mark, it's not a question mark. So at least the flow and continuity of these verses remains relatively intact. So, not a bad one. I definitely don't recommend it though, I'm just using that as an example. I'm looking through many different versions here. Let's have a look at the, what's a good one here? New Revised Standard Version, Catholic Edition. Agrippa said to Paul, "Are you so quickly persuading me to become a Christian?" Question mark. And there's a footnote here, of course. Or, "Quickly you will persuade me to play the Christian." Not really sure what that's going on about, but surprise, surprise. World English Bible, Agrippa said to Paul with a little persuasion, "Are you trying to make me a Christian?" Question mark. So again, with the exception of a couple of versions, the New King James and the NLV, which no one's really heard of anyway, all of the readings are questions and rebukes and rebuttals, and it's only really, truly, with the King James Bible that this is a man under conviction, knowing that Paul is speaking truth. And, you know, really, I think he's on the cusp of it, but he's frightened as to the consequences of it. He probably knows that, well, not probably, he knows what Paul is saying is truth. And he knows it, you can see it. "Almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian." Who says that? But a man under conviction. And this is what I mean about these other verses. It doesn't give you that. As I said, it's almost like he's arguing, and you know, one version there said he interrupted him. There's nothing like that at all. This is a standard flowing conversation with a real great conclusion in verse 28. "Almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian." Just fascinating. Fascinating. And as I said, you know, it's been the power of this, and again the translation is not good anyway with these modern satanic perversions, but the power of this verse is what I'm really getting at, you know, with this video. The power, you know, this conviction is such a powerful force when you're on the cusp of becoming a Christian. To imply that, you know, you're sort of arguing against it or saying, you know, what are you trying to do? You know, it's nothing like the reading that you get in the King James Bible, excuse me. Yeah, I love that. "Then Agrippa said unto Paul, Almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian." I love it. I love it. And we just lose that power with these other versions. We lose that conviction. And even the ones that do correspond broadly to the same meaning, again, it's just the normal problem. They're different enough to qualify for their copyright, And again, the other problem is, okay, so one or two versions have a similar reading or roughly the same reading, but in many other verses they're wrong. They're just wrong or blasphemous. So again, the fact that one reading's right, I mean, you could argue that about many verses in the Bible. For example, measurements and that kind of thing. I mean, the fact that they correspond across multiple versions is no surprise, really. It's no surprise. But what I'm concerned about is key doctrine, and especially anything challenging the deity of Jesus Christ. But this is an interesting one. Conviction, guys. And I'm sure all of us who are Christians who came to that point were under conviction just before we got saved. I got convicted. And I can relate to this. I can really relate to this. Almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian, except the almost. I got persuaded, and it was the greatest thing I ever did, and it's changed my life completely. So, I think there's a beauty and a poetry to these series of verses, and I would really like to hear your comments on this, guys. Just take a look at some of the new perversions and see what you think. I mean, I found 2. I'm sure there's others, but I mean, I generally focus on the more prominent, popular translations around. So, would love to hear your thoughts. God bless. Thanks.